You're listening to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Hodes. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. I know I sound like a broken record, but happy 2026. And huge thanks again to Ona Christie Martin. If you listened to that end of year episode, you know this is the year of the fire horse. She's incredible, and of the many mind-blowing statements she made during the course of that interview, which I listened to again, one that has stood out again and again since we spoke was be the rider, not the horse. Don't get caught leaning over the horse's head. Sit back in that saddle, hold the reins, and direct that fire horse this year. And one other gem, turning circles with the horse is productive. It calms the horse and makes for a fruitful path forward. With fire in my mind, I got to thinking about Earth's ring of fire, a circle of fiery volcanoes in the Pacific Ocean. My first full panic attack occurred in a hotel room half a globe away from Cascadia, but it was curiously part of Cascadia's legendary ring of fire. We were in the final days of a trip of a lifetime to Japan that included a visit to Disney's two parks, Disneyland and Tokyo Sea, which, by the way, was hands down the best theme park I've ever been to, before or since. Okay, but back to that panic attack. We were staying in a hotel on Tokyo Bay, and somewhere around 3 a.m. I woke up, heart racing, sweating, gasping in enough air not to faint. Everyone else in the room remained asleep, which was better than them freaking out along with me. Heart pounding, sweating, crying. I basically thought I had to be dying. If you've not experienced a panic attack, well, I hope you never do. As the worst of it began to subside, I had an urge to press my hands against something ice cold. The best I could find in the slim room was a window. I sobbed, wiping my face with a pajama sleeve. After 15 minutes or so, the attack had run its course. Thinking back on that night, I believe while I slept in that hotel room on Tokyo Bay, a place rife with traumas, some as recent as World War II, I felt those residual energies, anger, fear, panic, felt by Japanese citizens and soldiers alike. All those energies would be amplified by the geothermal activity, wouldn't they? The Ring of Fire is potent medicine for Earth and maybe even us humans. Let's get into it. Let's start with some basics. From Wikipedia, the Ring of Fire, also known as the Pacific Ring of Fire, the Rim of Fire, the Girdle of Fire, or the Circum-Pacific Belt, is a tectonic belt of volcanoes and earthquakes. Ooh, the Girdle of Fire? That sounds like some fat-burning innovation, doesn't it? Or a side effect from some new drug. Okay, I'm sorry, here's more. It is about 25,000 miles long and up to approximately 310 miles wide and surrounds most of the Pacific Ocean. The Ring of Fire contains between 750 to 915 active or dormant volcanoes, which makes up 2/3 of the total number of volcanoes in the world. Wiki notes this: the exact number of volcanoes within the Ring of Fire depends on which regions are included. Here's a bit more from Live Science. The Ring of Fire runs from southern Chile up the west coast of the Americas, through the islands off Alaska and down Japan to the Philippines. Some geologists also include an Indonesian chain of volcanoes in the ring. And from a sign about Mount Rainier, more than 500 volcanoes have erupted during the last millennium, and nearly 4/5 of them constitute the Ring of Fire, a series of volcanic arcs surrounding the Pacific Basin. The volcanoes of the high Cascades, with familiar names such as Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, and Medicine Lake, are part of the Ring of Fire and have been volcanically active for the past 12 to 13 billion years. The volcanic arcs that make up the Ring of Fire parallel the boundaries where one tectonic plate plunges beneath another. If you marked every active volcano in the world on a map, you'd start to notice a pattern. Most of the world's active volcanoes are on the edges of the tectonic plates that make up the Earth's crust. You might also notice a large chain of volcanoes around the Pacific Ocean. This circle, called the Ring of Fire, follows the edge of the Pacific Plate. More than half of the world's named volcanoes occur around the Ring of Fire. Wow, that was so interesting, all from a sign by Mount Rainier. The Ring of Fire accounts for about 90% of the world's earthquakes. Scientists estimate the Ring of Fire was formed 35 million years ago, which my brain has a hard time ingesting. Oh, and the Hawaiian Islands, though formed by underwater volcanic activity, they're not part of the Ring of Fire. They are too far away from a subduction zone to be considered as part of this girdle of fire. Again from Live Science. What's special about the Ring of Fire is that multiple oceanic plates in the Pacific has subduction boundaries there. Loic van der Klusen, a volcanist at Drexel in Philadelphia, told Live Science about 90% of the 34,000 miles of subduction plate boundaries on Earth are found in the Pacific. Van der Klusen explained, "Subduction zones around the Pacific Ocean do not form a complete ring. Where subduction zones are absent, there are corresponding gaps in subduction-related volcanic belts in the Ring of Fire. In some gaps, there is no volcanic activity. In other gaps, volcanic activity does occur, but it is caused by processes not related to subduction. There are gaps in the Ring of Fire at some parts of the Pacific coast of the Americas. In some places, the gaps are thought to be caused by flat slab subduction. Examples are the 3 gaps between the 4 sections of the Andean volcanic belt in South America. In North America, there's a gap in subduction-related volcanic activity in northern Mexico and southern California, due partly to a divergent boundary in the Gulf of California, and due partly to the San Andreas Fault. Another North American gap in subduction-related volcanic activity occurs in northern British Columbia, Yukon, and southeast Alaska, where volcanism is caused by intraplate continental rifting. But here's the real truth. Brace yourself. That Ring of Fire, it's more of a horseshoe than a ring. The world's highest active volcano is Ojos de Salado, which I think translates as Eyes of the Salad, or maybe I mangled that a bit. This peak stands 22,615 feet and is in the mountain section of the Ring of Fire. It forms part of the border between Argentina and Chile, and it last erupted in 750 AD. Another Ring of Fire Andean volcano on the Argentina-Chile border is Lulaco, which is 22,110 feet high and is the world's highest historically active volcano, last erupting in 1877. So what's in a name? There's concern about the name given to this active region of Earth. This comes from Live Science. Some experts believe that the term has taken on a false meaning in popular culture, with the implication that it's one big structure. Eric Clementi said this, a volcanist at Denison University in Granville, Ohio. He told this to Live Science, quote, "It works nicely as a way to describe the fact that there are an awful lot of volcanoes along the edge of the Pacific," he said. "But the ring is just a geographic coincidence of our current moment on Earth." End quote. One big misconception is the catastrophic notion that all volcanoes in the Ring of Fire are interconnected and that an eruption or earthquake in one location can trigger the whole region with dramatic consequences. That from Vander Clusen. While it's clear to scientists that an eruption in Japan will not trigger an eruption in Chile, for example, the term is sometimes used to suggest that it's possible, he said, like a chain of events. Find links to this article authored by Perry Thaler for Life Science in my show notes. Though the volcanoes associated on the Ring of Fire aren't linked by some massive vein of hot magma, I thought it was worth mentioning the peaks that have blown their stacks on the ring. From Britannica.com, quote, major volcanic events that have occurred within the Ring of Fire since 1800 included the eruptions of Mount Tambora in 1815, Krakatoa in 1883, Nova Rupta in 1912, Mount St. Helens in 1980, Mount Ruiz in 1985, and Mount Pinatubo in 1991. The Ring of Fire has been the setting for several of the largest earthquakes of recorded history, including the Chile earthquake of 1960, the Alaska earthquake of 1964, the Chile earthquake of 2010, and the Japan earthquake of 2011, as well as the earthquake that produced the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. How Stuff Works had an amazing article, and sometimes I find an article so entertaining, filled with good info, I just have to share it in its entirety. I have linked to this juicy morsel in the show notes. Be sure to give it a read, or if you're a teacher, share it with your students. Authored by Mark Mancini for How Stuff Works, it's titled The Ring of Fire is the Pacific's Volcanic Hotspot, and reads, when the explorer Ferdinand Magellan visited Earth's biggest ocean in 1520, he found the waters pleasantly calm, and that's why to this day most people call it the Pacific Ocean, as Pacific is a synonym for peaceful. Oh, the irony, Magellan didn't know it, but there's a vast loop of volcanoes, trenches, and seismically active places running through and around the Pacific. This would be the infamous Ring of Fire. About 24,900 miles long, it's where most of the world's earthquakes and volcanic activities take place. Here's a 7-part crash course on the region as a whole. And spoiler alert, it's got nothing to do with that Johnny Cash love song, unfortunately. Number 1, it's an international sensation. More than 15 countries are pierced by this geologically interesting area. In the New World, it hugs the western coasts of South, Central, and North America. Then it spans Alaska's Aleutian Island arc. From there, the ring invades Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula before shooting through Japan. Next in line are the Philippines, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and New Zealand. The ring completes itself down below in northwestern Antarctica, where a number of volcanoes are present. Number 2, plate tectonics make the whole thing possible. You and I live on top of the Earth's lithosphere, our home world's rocky exterior, but this layer isn't some rigid shell. Instead, it's divided into 15 to 20 tectonic plates that drift over molten materials deeper in the planet. Boundaries between them come in 3 major categories, and the Ring of Fire includes examples of each one. Let's start with the divergent boundaries. These occur when 2 neighboring plates move in opposite directions because they generate new crust, the outer portion of our lithosphere. They're extremely important. Under the ocean, the huge Pacific plate is being pushed away from 4 of its counterparts by the powerful East Pacific rise. The boundary's northern tip stretches into the Gulf of California, putting it well within the Ring of Fire. And up in California proper, we have the San Andreas Fault. That's a classic transform boundary, an area where 2 plates side sideswipe each other horizontally. California straddles the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. The latter is headed south, the former's moving north. Friction between these causes earthquakes, such as the 1906 San Francisco quake that killed about 3,000 people. Number 3, it's home to the world's deepest ocean trench. What happens when plates collide head-on? A convergent boundary. That's what. At this very moment, the Nazca Oceanic Plate is being driven underneath the South American continental plate. The point of contact is called a subduction zone. Because the ocean plate isn't going down smoothly, the convergence process sets off a lot of earthquakes in western South America. It's also uplifting mountains and sending up the magma necessary for volcanoes. Subduction zones can also appear where two ocean plates meet. Remember the giant Pacific Plate? Well, right now, the Philippine Sea Plate is overriding a western portion of it. This interaction forged the Mariana Island Arc. It also created a yawning underwater chasm called the Mariana Trench. Part of a larger subduction zone, it contains the deepest point of any ocean on Earth, called the Challenger Deep. That area's floor lies 36,070 feet below sea level. Number 4, it's littered with volcanoes and prone to earthquakes. Okay, Captain Obvious, but here's more detail. National Geographic reported that there are some 452 active and dormant volcanoes spread out across the Ring of Fire, including plenty of submarine vents and fissures that erupt underwater. As far as we know, these account for 75% of all the world's volcanic activity. Meanwhile, around 90% of the earthquakes on this planet occur in the ring's general area. Some of the worst natural disasters in recorded history, like the 1883 Krakatoa eruption, the Chile earthquake of 1960, and 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, had their origins along its tectonic boundaries. Number 5, its quakes are not interconnected. It's worth repeating this because I had it in my brain like they were. He goes on to write this: the Ring of Fire has been described as a coincidence. Really, it's just a collection of independent plate boundaries that happen to exist around the same ocean. So when disasters break out on opposite sides of the ring, you can bet they're unrelated. Case in point, a series of earthquakes rocked Japan's Kyushu Island in April 2016. That same month, Chile suffered a quake with a Richter scale magnitude of 7.2. Did one set off the other? Hardly. As the University of California, Berkeley Seismology Lab pointed out, the epicenters were almost 10,000 miles apart. Although a strong earthquake can trigger weaker ones in nearby places, the gap between Chile and Japan is way too big for their quakes to be linked. But while we're here, the evidence suggests volcanoes erupt independently of each other, which is good to know. Number 6, it's a great producer of geothermal energy. Solar and wind power grab more headlines, but the Earth's interior produces another renewable energy source. By harnessing natural hot water reservoirs, engineers can produce electricity without emitting greenhouse gases. Potential geothermal energy reserves are often located around subduction zones, making this an attractive option for communities in the Ring of Fire. Think the United States, Indonesia, Japan, New Zealand, and the Philippines and several other countries have long capitalized on this resource. Number 7, the Ring of Fire could help set up a future supercontinent. The Pacific is the world's largest ocean, but how long will it retain the title? Due in no small part to all the subduction zones on its flanks, the Pacific might close within the next 250 million years. As Asia, Australia, and the Americas converge, planet Earth may wind up with a new supercontinent, not too dissimilar from the giant landmass Pangaea that started breaking apart around 200 million years ago. But that's just one hypothesis. Some geologists think the Atlantic or the Arctic Oceans are more likely to disappear than the Pacific. Finally, For any minors out there, like those in search of ore, not listeners under 18, the Pacific Ring of Fire is the place to find an abundance of gold and what's been called world-class copper. Wow, if silver is more your jam, there's quite a bit along this volcanic arc too. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fiery swath of Mother Earth called Cascadia. If you live on the west coast of the US, I've linked to an MSN 5-minute segment. It's a video segment about how the Wanda Fuca plate is overdue for a big earthquake. It would shake Cascadia to a historic extent. Thanks for listening. Until next week, stay curious. I love you.